Welcome to another edition of the Tape Trader's Guide to 90 Pro Wrestling. This is JD, your host for the evening. And on tonight's episode, it's going to be a pretty cool one. My brother, not kayfabe brother, my real brother, Hookah Matt, this is all real life. He's going to be on the show tonight, and we're going to just talk, chit chat about like how he got into wrestling, what kind of wrestling he's into. He does a podcast, Ringside Hookah. You can check out Ringside Hookah on Facebook. There's a Facebook group for it. You can check it out on YouTube. He's got a YouTube channel, and we're just gonna do some general chatting. I've been wanting to bring someone on who watches current day WWE because I don't. But I listen to like the reviews and everything on different podcasts. So I wanted to bring someone on and just kind of like pass around different ideas and talk about what's going on and just talk general wrestling. And we're also going to talk about how Matt got into pro wrestling back in the day in the 90s and the stuff that he remembers watching back in the day and what really got him into it and different things like that. So it should be a pretty fun episode. I'm hoping that Matt will come on regularly and kick it with us and talk pro wrestling. But while I've got your attention, I want to put out a couple of things. First and foremost, Journeyman, the Francisco Chiatsu documentary. It will be. We have a screening coming up. It will be August 30th at 6:00. We will have a red carpet, the whole deal. This will be the first time ever that this documentary has been shown anywhere, and I've seen it, and it's amazing. It really is. This will be in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Full Moon Cineplex. So if you're local, make sure you come out. Tickets will only be $8. Some of the VIPs that have already confirmed: Josephus, Chase Stevens, Andy Douglas, The Naturals, Jerry Lynn, promoter Frank Griffiths of Overdrive Pro Wrestling, promoter of New South Championship Wrestling James Carver, Jeremiah Plunkett, trainer for TNT Pro Wrestling. So Kevin Martin, Johnny Bandana, the whole group, and then Frankie and Stormy, of course, the director of the documentary, Paul Stewart, who I'd like to have come on here and kind of talk about the process of doing the documentary and what made him want to do it and different things like that. And we're currently in the process of looking for different conventions to bring this to, whether it be a Comic-Con or like a WrestleCade type of event. FYI, I will have Kira Hogan and Daphne at this year's WrestleCade. So if you're planning on going out there, make sure you stop by and say hi. Also, September 22nd, Superstars of Wrestling in Rome, Georgia. I will have Daphne at the WrestleTopia booth. But back to what I was saying. If there happens to be a convention near you, whether it's pro wrestling or a comic book deal, make sure you hit me up on social media and let me know. Go to WrestleTopia, Facebook.com /1 WrestleTopia, the number one WrestleTopia. Let me know about what's going on, and I'll see if I can't work something out to get the film shown at an event near you. Also, WrestletopiaTV TV on Pivot Share. Come and support me there. Subscription is $4.99. You can rent, you can buy, or you can subscribe to any of the content that I have up there. And I've got so many about to drop. CHW Retribution, MSWA, Star Spangled Spectacular. We've got 5, I believe, at this point, 5 different New South or UPW events, including the Great American Clash, ready to drop. I have Best of LT Falk, Showtime, Best of Showtime All-Star Wrestling Volume 2. So much stuff is. I'm going to put up some USWO events, maybe a Best of USWO. So much is getting ready to drop. All these different conventions that I'm going to, we plan on filming everything from start to end and piecing things together and see what we can't get out of that. So right now is the time. Go to Pivot Share, WrestleTopia TV. Look me up. Go to WrestleTopia on Facebook, WrestleTopia on Instagram, WrestleTopia on Twitter, everywhere. Follow me, support me. It is all very much appreciative. WrestleTopia is all about love, passion, pro wrestling, and I mean it from my heart. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's connect with my brother Hookah Matt and start the actual episode.
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here.
So, good brother, you are my actual legitimate non-kayfabe brother. Um,
Yes, this is not a Kane and Undertaker or Edge and Christian scenario.
it's not, no. So, let's kind of start off like what I ask everyone is kind of the basics, of all podcast interviews. Kind of go back to like how did you become a wrestling fan, Matt? Because everyone
Ugh.
listening to this knows how I started. So, how did you start?
I started obviously a little bit after you. You're definitely probably the biggest influence on me starting to watch wrestling and get interested in this crazy hobby of watching these grown men fight each other in their underwear. Um, I can vividly remember we lived in Tennessee, and I believe it was SummerSlam. It was either '98 or '99. It was X-Pac versus Jeff Jarrett in
Uh huh.
the guitar match and everything. And I remember having a birthday party over it and stuff like that. Had friends over. Like I remember really getting into it when we moved to Tennessee, and that just kind of sparked the interest. And ever since then, just constantly watching the product. And I took a break for a good little while, a chunk of it and everything. But yeah, I mean, it just ever since like '98, watching the Attitude Era and kind of growing up with that whole thing and stuff. Just yeah, I mean, I would say probably because of you.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Who are some of the people that most interest you? I know X Pac was a big influence.
hmm
Who were some of the other people in the '90s that really? Because it was such a crazy time, and especially being my younger brother, I had videotapes from all over the place, and but you've mostly primarily been a WWE fan, haven't you?
Yeah, I'd say definitely for the most part, WWE has definitely been the biggest, promotion that I grew up watching and definitely stayed more interested in. Like I branched off as time went on to like Ring of Honor and New Japan Wrestling. I remember the tapes that you used to have for like Japanese death matches and stuff. Like I remember watching those and being like, "This is crazy. These men are killing each other," and not fully understanding. Completely before I understood what kayfabe was and everything. Like seeing those, like I remember distinctly one of your cassette tapes was a piranha match where they had
Yeah.
the piranha tank in the middle of it and they were trying to force each other inside of the piranha tank, the fish aquarium, in the middle of it. But during the '90s and the Attitude Era, I mean, I love The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho. Taka Michinoku, seeing those people, even when Maximilian, all those guys and stuff like that. It's funny to like think back upon them, Bret Hart and Owen Hart, the entire Hart Foundation.
Yeah.
There's so many people that like when I rewatch like old school wrestling pay-per-views because of like the WWE Network and stuff like that, it's crazy to like look at these wrestling people and stuff and be like, oh man, I haven't thought about Grandmaster Sexy in years. I haven't thought about these guys in such a long time. So like there's Scott Hall obviously for when it came to like Razor Ramon and then transitioning into the NWO and all that kind of stuff that they did. Eddie Guerrero, just all those guys, just all the hard working people. I was never interested in the big guys.
Yeah.
Undertaker
Yeah.
was kind of that person that I liked because of the gimmick more than I liked his wrestling ability. So like he drew me in by so much of that, and then his matches were always outrageous, obviously, and then like Shawn Michaels because of his skill set and everything like that. I don't know, just all. I would say more than anything, the people that you normally associate with the late '90s wrestling, all
Right.
those guys, I was fans of.
Right. Right. So you took a break from wrestling, like I think everyone does. I mean, but now that what kind of brought you back in? I mean, what was it that hooked you back in? How long have you been back watching, current day WWE stuff?
So there's one person that brought me back into watching wrestling. It was Daniel Bryan. That is
Uh,
the only reason I started watching when he came to NXT. Like it was. So I took this big break from watching wrestling, and I would say it was probably close to 6, maybe 7 years from like 2000 and probably 2002 till about 2009ish, somewhere in between there when they're really giving the big push to like CM Punk not the big push, obviously, but the push where he got like the World Heavyweight Championship and they destroyed his push and everything. But when Daniel Bryan came onto NXT and they did the like kind of reality show version of NXT, there was something about Daniel Bryan that I instantly connected with. I don't even know what it was. His first match on the TV was with Chris Jericho, and for some reason that match just like stood out. So instantly I went and found all the stuff on ROH. I found, his early match that he did with WWF on Velocity and stuff like that. But it was purely because of Daniel Bryan. That is why I started to watch the product again.
Did you ever see any of his American Dragon stuff with the mask and everything?
Yes, I did. I thought that was. There's some cool stuff in Noah, I think is what it was, where I think he had the mask off at that time, but his early stuff in Japan with the mask on was weird because he had this like. I want to say he was definitely learning his style. So it was like watching Daniel Bryan, pre-Daniel Bryan, right? Like it was him definitely developing, creating what he became known as and stuff. And then when he took the mask off and he had that buzzed haircut and he was like this like badass heel type scenario guy, like that stuff was just phenomenal. I love that.
So let me ask you, you get drawn back in because of Daniel Bryan, and you go out and you search and you find all of this ROH and his Noah stuff and everything. What do you think it is that primarily keeps you more interested in WWE than the independents? Or because I know that you're aware of them, and I'm sure that you if they come on TV or do you go out of your way to watch them? Do you like DVR ROH or New Japan on Access or anything?
So I don't have cable television. I purely live off of the internet. I only have Netflix and WWE Network and Hulu and stuff like that. So the thing that keeps me away from the independent scene as much is the easeability to find the product. It is way easier to watch WWE, and I know that things have become way easier with like New Japan has their New Japan World Access Wrestling or whatever it is, and ROH I think does on-demand streaming as well through DirecTV. I think is what it is. But it's just easier to deal with watching a single product and get involved with that. I mean, I have 4 kids. I have an army of small children around me at all times. So I don't watch even that much WWE. I catch all the pay-per-views, and I get the lead-up to what is going on for the angles and stuff like that. But for the most part, because it's so much easier to watch WWE, that's why I watch it. But when there's a big match that happens, like I saw Chris Benoit versus NATO. No, not NATO. God, what was his name? NATO? Okay, yeah. So I watched that match. Obviously, I watched Kenny Omega and all this stuff against, not Asuka, Oska, or what's his name? God damn it. Okada. And, so like I know of the big things that are happening outside of the world of WWE, and I catch those matches and I watch them, and I enjoy them because they're purely professional wrestling matches. I don't need the build-up to watch that stuff. So it's basically easeability more than anything. Like the things that keep me watching WWE is that there are certain performers that still put on top-notch matches. Right. I will always be a much bigger fan of the ring psychology and the ring stories than I am of the actual, stories that surround the, I know what kayfabe is. I understand what's going on. So I watch it for the athleticism, for the match telling, and for that moment, the singular moment in every single match where I have to say, is he going to win right now? When you get to suspend disbelief, that's when it's fun again.
Right. So you do your own podcast, and let's talk a little bit about what Ringside Hookah is.
All right. So Ringside Hookah is me and a really good friend of mine. His name is Moise. We are tackling. He watches everything. He watches all the stuff in New Japan. He watches all the stuff on Impact. I purely watch WWE stuff. We are trying to build this bit of a YouTube / podcasting type thing where we preview the pay-per-view the Thursday before the pay-per-view actually happens. And then we're also trying to build some content in some unique ways. He does this thing called fantasy talent booking, where he takes a talent that he doesn't think is being used well in the product, and he books them the way that he thinks they should be booked. And then I do the superstar spotlights, where I take a wrestler that is a favorite wrestler of mine, and I redo I go through their history from the earliest time that we can kind of see when they became who they were, and then up until their very last match or what they're doing recently, basically. It's pretty new. It's something that we've only been working on for, I think, maybe 2 months at this point.
Uh-huh.
And, yeah, it's just something fun that I like. I smoke hookah. I'm a big fan of it. It's my pastime hobby, and I love wrestling. So anytime I can put those two hobbies together, I'm more than willing to do that, obviously.
Right. So, and the your segment can also be heard right here on the Tape Trader's Guide to 90s Pro Wrestling after you debut it on YouTube.
Yes.
So, tell me a little bit about what's going on, because I am the most casual of all casual WWE viewer. I have the network, and there's literally times where I can go months upon months without ever turning it on. Like it's one of those things, like $10 just happens to be the lowest denominator of what I can just let slide. You know, and when I do turn it on, I do enjoy it. Like, I like watching old WCW Saturday nights, and now that they have that on there, and you know, I enjoy being able to go back and watch a pay-per-view from '91. I have this weird love for WCW in 1990 and '91 and '92. I don't know what it is, but I've got this. I don't know. I guess because it was during that time period where I was just becoming a fan. And so I remember it, you know, in bits and pieces and spots and whatever. But I don't watch, like, current day pay-per-views. And I do have cable, and I don't watch Raw or SmackDown. The only thing that I will watch the NXT takeovers. I don't watch the weekly show. But I will watch the takeovers. And I think the last 3 years in a row, I have done my very best to try and watch Mania. But it loses me. It's too long, and and after a couple weeks go by, the thing is I listen to the Post podcast with John Pollock and Wei Ting, and they're the podcast I listen to all my reviews on, and they do such a good job at reviewing that I just don't even feel like I need to watch it, because it everything that goes on when I do watch it. My biggest problem with current day WWE is that if I watch an AJ Styles match today, and as great as he is, and as good as he works in the ring, and as good as the match will be, if I watch this match today, and I watch another one of his matches, let's say in a month, it's the exact same match. I'm watching the exact same stuff, the same moves, the same move to the crowd, the same everything, and it doesn't interest me. You know, the stories are hokey, and the acting is bad. And the talent is probably better than it's ever been, but it's just it's boring to me, to be totally honest.
It is.
Not because of the wrestling. The wrestling is great, but they all wrestle the same match. They all do the same match over and over and over and over. And I feel like there's a real lack of creativity just in the whole product, you know? Even from the way it looks, because this Raw has looked the same way for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that one of the biggest problems with WWE and trying to watch it on a weekly basis, especially with Raw being 3 hours, like, that is one of the worst decisions. You know, NXT TakeOver is the best wrestling you will ever see in WWE on every single time that you see a TakeOver event. Like,
I agree.
Those are the only ones you need to watch. NXT television is pretty good too. It's an hour long, so they get a lot crammed in,
right.
And they do a good job that every week feels a little bit different. Raw every week feels exactly the same, and they have the great talent there, and they push those guys, but they push them in the same way. And you know, in a world in professional wrestling where wins mean nothing, they really, really want to beat home that wins mean nothing, because somebody will get a win one week and they will just lose the next week, and there is no build-up for an actual person to be better than somebody else, because they don't want to hurt anybody's position on the card. You know, one of the biggest examples of that is I love Iron Man matches, right? Like, an Iron Man match done correctly is amazing. A 60-minute Iron Man match can be drama-filled, it can be technician build, it can have great big high spots and everything, but they did a stupid freaking thing. They did a 30-minute Iron Man match. How in the hell can that qualify as an Iron Man match? It was the most ridiculous thing. So they have Seth Rollins versus Dolph Ziggler for the Intercontinental Championship. They closed out the event with this match, this 30-minute Iron Man match. It was terrible. And then on Raw, they have Seth Rollins win back the title.
Right.
What is the point of having this 30-minute Iron Man match other than to say we want Dolph Ziggler to stay in the company, so we need to give him this belt for a little while so that he has a win under his belt? And it's just it's boring. The stories are bad, and I agree. Like in a world of scripted professional wrestling, it feels more scripted on WWE television, which is a weird thing to say, but that's exactly what it feels like. That's why you see the same match whenever you see a performer wrestle. Like there's nothing unique about it.
Right, and there's nothing unique about them, you know. And it's so funny because when I can remember in 1997 when I couldn't even envision a 24-hour, streaming wrestling network that has, every single pay-per-view every month come on, and you can watch this whole giant library of film and everything. And it's just, honestly, it's very meh to me. It's so, because I think the biggest problem is that I was an old school tape trader, and so a lot of the older stuff I've already seen. And as much as I like going back and watching it here and there, and I enjoy that, I have already seen it. I've seen every pay-per-view, and I've seen probably, every Raw up until 2005 when I really just had enough. And so now everything there's no originality even in the programming on their network, because they'll have something great like a WWE 24, but there's no season, there's no episode count. They just randomly have one, just randomly. The 365 series, that's another pretty cool series. I don't like that as much. But it's different. It's something different that you're doing. Why can't you have 3 or 4 of those going on at one time? Following 3 or 4 different people. It's just when you have one episode and then all of a sudden you go months and months without another episode, you lose interest. Just like if it was television, you would lose interest after you wait 7-8 months for a new episode to come out, and you only get to watch one.
And then you have to hope that the next time they do an episode, it's going to be something you're interested enough in to spend the time to watch it. The first WWE 24/7 that they did over WrestleMania for that year was fantastic. It was amazing to see The Undertaker come back and limp and then realize he's going to the hospital and see that stuff from the backstage perspective. I think as you get older in professional wrestling and you become a deeper fan into the actual minutia of what professional wrestling is, the matches of the card mean so much less in that aspect. So to see the backstage stuff is so intriguing and interesting. But then when they go months and months without it, and even though I think the next one that they did was the AJ Styles one, which was multiple years later for the WWE 24/7. I like AJ Styles. Don't get me wrong; he's a good wrestler and all that stuff. But he is old, and it's weird because even though he's not past his prime, I don't think he is. I'm not interested in learning about him in the backstage as much as I would be. Oh, Finn Balor had one. That was a pretty good one, actually, too. But, you take some of these guys that already have a certain amount of limelight to them, and they don't need this kind of series put upon them. So then I'm just kind of waiting, I wonder what the next one's going to be. The Hardy ones was good because the Hardys have been gone for so long, so you wanted to see them come back. The Kurt Angle one was pretty good. Same reason for that one. But at the same time, when you wait so long, you feel okay putting off the need to watch anything quickly.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's another good one was that NXT series that they had, where they followed the NXT guy. What was that called? Proving Ground, or? Yeah,
but that lasted. I don't even know. It was so brief. They didn't even run very many episodes of it, and then it was gone without any explanation, and they stopped doing it.
Yeah, that was a good series too. That's unfortunate because that was pretty interesting. So do you get into say All In? Are you interested in All In?
I am interested in All In, and I think it's purely for Cody Rhodes' involvement in All In.
Really?
It's weird.
Are you a fan of the Young Bucks?
I'm not really a fan of the Young Bucks, and I don't know what it is about them that I'm not a fan of. I don't know if it's just because, and this is going to sound weird, I think it's because they're so not serious that there's something about them where I'm come on, guys, don't you know what you're doing? I don't know. There's something. there's something weird about it where it's almost like they're in on it, right? And because they're in on it, I feel like I'm not as in on it or something. Like, I don't know what it is about it. I can't explain it. But Cody Rhodes has made a very interesting transition. I liked his work as Stardust. I actually love Stardust because I love Goldust.
I agree. I agree. I thought it was very interesting. I thought he played the character interesting.
Yes.
I'm all for if he doesn't want to do it, then you don't make the guy do it. But I really enjoyed it too. I also liked it.
Yeah, and it's because I'm such a big mark for Goldust. I love Goldust, everything that he does. So like seeing his brother take on this persona, right underneath him, I was like, this is awesome. I love this kind of brother stuff. This is great. But his transition into becoming this heel independent wrestler person, I don't understand Cody Rhodes, and maybe you can help me because you are way more into the indie scene and stuff. Is Cody Rhodes really over? Is he really that over as he kind of makes himself appear to be?
Well, I would say kind of, you're looking at a 50-50 on that because he's been away from national TV for a little while. I do think that his brand, the Cody Rhodes brand, that means something. So, because I've done shows with him on the card, and he charges $5,000 to come out, and he keeps all of his gimmick money. I mean, he makes an incredible amount of money, and I do think that you put Cody Rhodes on your poster. First of all, he's not going to do just any independent, and so that by itself makes it more special. He's only doing very particular ones, and the ones he's doing with a group of other very highly in demand performers. And so I think that he's kind of created this very special brand all to himself where he's associated with all these other people and all these other people are associated with him. So everywhere he is, this other group of people is also, and so there's this brand of these young wrestlers that's just so in demand that I do think that it is a little bit of him. It's a little bit of smoke and mirrors, but it's working. And when as a fan, I think a fan perceives it also as he's a big deal. So I do think that his brand is as over as it seems, but it is a little. He's a carny. He's a carny of a carny, and that's the thing is not only is he the the son of Dusty Rhodes and the brother of Dustin Rhodes, his uncles and aunts are all pro wrestlers. But his father, Dusty sent him to acting classes before he ever got trained to be a wrestler. He sent him to business school, and he ingrained a very special set of skills on Cody Rhodes before he even put Cody into pro wrestling. And I think that's what you're seeing right now is someone who decided to create a brand amongst themselves and go out and just sell it. And he hooked up with the Young Bucks, and he hooked up with Kenny Omega, and they're all doing the exact same thing, and they're all this brand, and so them together it just feels like a superpower,
Yes.
And I think the fans perceive it that way. I think Kenny Omega is incredible. I think the Young Bucks, they're incredibly talented performers. I think Cody Rhodes is a very talented performer and has a very special type of charisma that he holds. But not out of those four people, none of those four people am I a best in the world kind of person with them. I just they're all really, really talented and good, but I don't see it, And
exactly. I don't see it either. And the weirdest thing is every time I watch a Cody Rhodes match, it always seems like, and this is like old school wrestling trope in my opinion, where the announcers are doing everything they can to put Cody Rhodes over to me as the viewer, which I always find really odd because isn't he over? Like, why are you selling him to me so strongly?
Well,
and hearing the price that he comes with.
There's a multiple of reasons, and that price that he comes with is one of the reasons.
Yeah.
If you're a company and if you're running a show and you're the promoter and you just paid Cody Rhodes $5,000 and now you're filming and producing this event to sell, whether you're selling ad time on your TV show, or you're selling it on like Pivot Share, or you're selling it on iPay-per-view or Fight TV, or whatever you're selling it on, you as you're going to want your announcer to create this aura of this person as being a legitimate big deal that's working for you on your show. You've got to get a return on that investment, And so those are very important things, especially in video production and television, is that if you're spending a lot of money, you've got to make sure. I mean, everyone on your show, you should be putting over like they're the biggest thing that there ever has been. You know, there's nothing bigger than the people that are on your show simply because you're paying them. You know, and you've got to make your money back on that.
Yeah, but for me, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just because I have a preconceived idea, Cody Rhodes is the only one that it feels like they're selling me product. And I don't know why that is about him. And I don't know if it's just my preconceived idea. I don't know what it is fully, but that's how. But when it comes to All In, like I'm excited. Like the card is awesome. Like I like that we're seeing the Golden Lovers come back for a tag team match and stuff. Like it's gonna be a great card. It's gonna have great professional wrestling. It's a throwaway event in terms of like meaningfulness, right? Because like none of these are story built, which is fine. It's great to have an exhibition pay-per-view. That's cool. That's a neat idea. That's not a novel idea, but it's a good idea with independent stars. I mean, that's what most, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what most independent wrestling is, right? Like it's all exhibition events for the most part because they don't have the luxury, unless you're like ROH or like Impact or New Japan Pro Wrestling. You don't have the luxury of building a storyline for the reason of this happening. They are all matches that you're booking for this show.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely true. There's very few weekly promotions out there anymore in 2018. You know, there's not a lot of places that are running weekly. I mean, you have, promotions, they run stories. They run programs with wrestlers and different things like that, but there's not TV anymore. So you as a casual fan or a fan of mostly WWE, you would have no idea what's going on in the independent world because you're not actively viewing it, You have a lot of the stuff is, they do, I mean, YouTube is a huge outlet for independent wrestling. And Pivot Share, High Spots Network, huge outlet for independent professional wrestling. Fight TV, which is an app, a free app that you can also purchase, iPay-per-views. And there's a lot of independent professional wrestling on there that run TV, that run, full-on storylines. So, like, I mean, All In will have, a lot of their matches will have history to them.
Chris Jericho, isn't he wrestling, what's his name again? Nato again, on that card?
I don't believe he's working on All In. I believe that's on the Jericho Cruise.
Oh, I thought he was doing All In. Okay, never mind.
No, I don't believe he's. The last I heard, he was trying to stay off from working in the U.S. as being respectful to the WWE. So I'm pretty sure that's taking place on his cruise, and his cruise is going to be the first ever, pro wrestling cruise that's going to have an actual ring in the middle of the boat, and they're going to have matches all throughout the cruise. With ROH and New Japan stars. I mean, that's a wild idea,
That is.
Have you ever watched any PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla?
I've watched Pro Wrestling Guerrilla through YouTube. I watch, like, the funny clip videos that they do. I've seen stars that have gone through it, like, I know his name's not Aleister Black on the independent scene, but Aleister Black stuff, Kenny Omega stuff that he did, all Kevin Steen stuff when he was there. I love the humor and the comedy that they run throughout those shows and stuff like that. And then, like, the legitimate good wrestling as well and stuff like that, too. Like, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla is a lot of fun. And whenever I kind of fall into, like, the minutia of WWE and it's really boring, I'll look up stuff on Pro Wrestling Guerrilla and just remember, like, oh, yeah, this is just supposed to be a good time.
Yeah. And they're definitely a bunch of one-off kind of shows. They don't put a lot of storylines or anything like that. They're just out there having a good time. They're all friends, and they're all just going out there to bust their ass. So that's a great company. I really enjoy Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I think that's a good one. So, what do you? How about Impact? Do you ever see any kind of Impact?
No, I think Impact is like the lowbrow wrestling promotion, and I know it isn't, but like I don't have time to watch a lot of wrestling, so like I don't want to give any of that time to Impact.
Really?
Because I kind of want Impact to dissolve. I want it to go away so that, like, these stars can go to where they need to go to be a better entity for themselves, and so I can enjoy more of their product. Like, I did the TNA thing in 2011 to 2013-ish or whatever, and watched all this stuff, especially as, like, people were coming through it. And the thing that brought me back to Impact for a while was when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash went there for a little while because I'm such a big Scott Hall mark and stuff. But, like... And I love classic TNA. too. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, watching where AJ Styles started from, watching Loki, watching what's his name, Amazing Red, and all that kind of stuff, and especially their old stuff. You know, when they were just running the monthly pay-per-views or weekly pay-per-views that they used to do and stuff like that. You know, they had great content. When it comes to Impact, it feels just so I don't even know what the right word is, but it feels sterile to me. It makes me bored, and I don't know if it's because I'm just not interested in the wrestlers enough that I can't get myself involved in the storylines or the characters or anything like that. But I don't know if I want to get involved in their storylines or their characters, because I don't have time to give them that same amount of time that I would to WWE. And between the two, I'm going to go with the one where it has the people that I care more about, you know, the Bray Wyatts and the you know, even Randy Orton, as weird as that might sound, but Shinsuke Nakamura and Rusev and stuff like that. Like, I'd rather give the time and energy to those guys because I'm going to watch them for a longer amount of time.
Wow. So when was the last time that you watched any Impact?
Man, it's been, I mean, when Bobby Lashley did his big gimmick about getting all the world titles and stuff like that, that was probably like the last time that I gave any real time. Eric Carter a little bit. When they tried to do the Daniel Bryan treatment to Eric Young a little bit and stuff. So, I mean, a while ago, really.
Wow. Well, it is a totally different company than then.
But that's the thing, is it's always a totally different company. You know, I could watch it today, and in 6 months, it's probably going to get a new name with new buyers, and it's going to have a whole new feel to it. So, like, it also feels like, even though WWE is, like, very samey all the time, I know the product that I'm going to get, and with Impact, I feel like I'm going to get something different to a point where I have to, like, relearn everything, and I don't want to have to relearn everything. I just want to get what I need to get, and then move on.
Right. Well, I will say you should maybe flip it on there. You never know, because it this past pay-per-view was pretty damn good. Pretty damn good pay-per-view.
I do want to see Slammiversary. I mean, I do like staying up on big events like that. So I haven't watched it yet, but I do want to.
It's a good one.
My partner in the podcast and that YouTube channel, he's a huge fan of Impact Wrestling, and he tells me all the time that I need to get on it. Brian Cage, I think, is one of the big guys on the promotion right now, and he tells me all the time, he's like, you need to watch Brian Cage's stuff.
Oh, do you not see any Lucha Underground?
I did, but I haven't watched a ton of it. I saw the first half of season 1 on Netflix, and I just haven't remembered, honestly. When I go back to Netflix, I never remember, oh yeah, I want to watch Lucha Underground until it's midnight and I got to go to bed, basically.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, and my wife watches that occasionally with me, just because it's such a different type of television program. It's definitely not a wrestling program. It's more of a TV program.
It is definitely Telemundo soap operas and stuff like that, which I do like. I love the production value inside of Lucha Underground. That stuff's awesome. I love in season 1, I love Conan's role, and I love Raven's role as the commentator and stuff like that. Like, all that stuff's great.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's different. But it's another one of those things, kind of like PWG or the Young Bucks. It's just fun to watch. It's different. It's entertaining. It can be a little bit out there because it is a telenovela, so it's not really.
Yeah,
they can do whatever they want, and characters can be whatever they want them to be, and no matter how ridiculous it is, but it can be a lot of fun. They've got a lot of really great talent. A lot of talent here lately that's been coming out this way that I've been getting a chance to interact with and watch live, and just some incredible talent is out there. So who are right now, at this very moment, who do you kind of find to be, what do you think about Daniel Bryan's return? Do you think he's working a style, and is he as good as he was when you first fell in love with him?
He's not as good as he was, and it's sad to say and admit it too, because you can watch his, I don't want to say decline throughout the company, but you felt him starting to turn into that model. There's that great promo between him and Miz on Talking Smack, a couple years ago or whatever, where he calls the Miz, you're just that safe WWE worker, and then he calls Daniel Bryan out and says, like, well, you can go back to your bingo halls and wrestle and stuff. And it's like, I kind of wish he would, because then we would see Daniel Bryan go back to being what he was with this great style that he has. You know, everybody that comes to WWE, be it Shinsuke Nakamura, like, who cares about Shinsuke Nakamura in WWE? Like, nobody should, especially if you've ever seen a Shinsuke match outside of WWE, right? Like, right. Daniel Bryan has lost so much of the good things that made him so good. And I don't know if that's partly because of age. I don't know if that's partly because of, you know, keeping himself safe. He did have a legitimate bad injury that kept him off the, you know, ability to wrestle for a long time. But they booked him so bad is the other part. So it's hurt me caring about him, which is weird because he's still my favorite wrestler in WWE, but, like, there's no reason why he should not have won the greatest Royal Rumble. You know, it's right. Non-canon. It's something for the fans. It's something for people watching. And if he would have made that return and won that match, like, what? Oh, my gosh. Like, yes, push him back to the moon, because why would this guy, who is the top guy in the company, not immediately go back to the top guy in the company? You know, he had a thing where he was wrestling Big Cass, and Big Cass got fired 3 months into it because he's an idiot. But, you know, they're not booking him good, and they're not booking him right, so it annoys me as a fan, because even though I know that the booking is what's causing the frustration that I'm having, I don't want to keep watching that booking of him and continue with it. Like, I just don't. You know, there's people in the company that need that push, in my opinion. Rusev is who Daniel Bryan was a couple of years ago. There's nobody that gets a bigger pop in the company than Rusev for Rusev Day. Nobody in the entire company. And he's somebody that they need to push him like that. I don't know why they don't. I mean, I know why they don't. I understand the politics and all the bullshit to it. I get that. But it's annoying as a fan to know, like, this is the guy. Why is he not the guy? And it's just so frustrating in that regard.
So would you put him over AJ?
Okay, so I know the reason why they didn't put him over AJ is so that AJ would lose it to probably Samoa Joe, I'm assuming. But I would rather see Samoa Joe versus Rusev leading into SummerSlam. And I mean, yes, the big answer is yes. I would have put him over Rusev. I would have put Rusev over AJ Styles, because it would have felt different and it would have been exciting to see. You know, one thing that's hurt WWE, in my opinion, is the amount of bad finishes in the product. We've seen it for a long time, and it feels like every match can't end clean. We need to see more clean finishes. We need to see more clean endings. We need these guys to build actual push, and not this, like, you know, fake push where everybody just gets their win back the next week, so it doesn't matter. You know, I like Aiden English with Rusev. I really do. Obviously, WWE doesn't, because they already want to break that tandem up and they want to cause problems, which is just dumb, in my opinion. But, you know, just to have him be the cause of their loss with the whole, you know, belt buckle that happened and stuff like that, it was dumb. And it doesn't make AJ Styles look like a better wrestler than Rusev is. Like, and Rusev won't get that rematch. So, like, it just hurts him in the long run, which is annoying too.
Right. So, well, right now, if you could fantasy book, you know, where would you be at with, who would your top tier from champion down be, your top 5? Starting with the world champion.
World champion right now would probably be Samoa Joe, because I think that he would wear that belt with really good. And so I know there's 2 brands, so it's hard to really say, like, this guy over this guy and stuff like that. Roman Reigns would be falling ever so quickly if it was my job to book this damn thing.
So let me ask you this, though, real quick, because you know, I do see obviously Roman Reigns is kind of all up in your face if you watch any kind of wrestling, no matter what you're doing. But I also I see the overall conversation on him, and is the dislike for him about his ability? Or is the dislike for him that they're not turning him heel? Is the dislike, you know, what is it about him? Because in my opinion, when I look at him, I see a star. He looks to me like your very stereotypical pro wrestling star. He's a good-looking guy. He's big. He's built. He looks cool. He looks like he could really kick someone's ass. You know, what is it about him that you think that, you know, they just can't seem to figure out a way to get him over to the overall crowd?
So I'm definitely much more of a grappling wrestling fan. I am somebody who likes a technician. I like seeing awesome-looking suplexes, power bombs, exploders. I like seeing those kinds of moves, and that's not what Roman Reigns is. He's a striker, and I don't think when UFC became what UFC is today, it lost the ability for WWE to truly build submission and striker wrestling in the same capacity, because it's not believable to see somebody put a submission hold on a guy and have them, wing it for a minute and a half trying to get to the ropes and not tap out. When you see in the UFC somebody put a hold on and they instantly tap out because they're afraid they're about to break their arm off and stuff like that. And also the same thing with striking. It's super annoying to see him hit that Superman punch 5 times in a match and not win. So Roman Reigns, though, when he beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania, I was ready to get in. I was ready to go in on him if they would have turned him heel at that moment. He came out after WrestleMania beating The Undertaker on Raw, and he stood in the middle of the ring, and he let the fans boo him for what felt like an eternity. Everybody was booing at him. Everybody was against him. There was so much. There was Shane Douglas levels of heat back for when people thought that he was going to kill whoever that was back in the late '90s and stuff. Like legitimate white heat was on Roman Reigns, and the only thing he said when he finally got the microphone and spoke into it, he said, "This is my yard now." And it's like, oh my God, yes. This is what we want to see. We want to see him be this heel that says, like, screw all y'all. I'm going to do my own thing, and I don't care if you don't like me. But they didn't do that. So the booking of him not being heel, I think, is the biggest drawback. His ability is there if you like that style of being a striker. He's not as good as The Undertaker. He's not as good as John Cena, which is weird. Because, I don't know. I think John Cena is actually way underrated because of the amount of flack that he gets, obviously. But Roman Reigns, he is not the guy. And the reason why he's not the guy is because he is forced down in such an unnatural way. The best instance I can give you is on this Extreme Rules pay-per-view. Bobby Lashley beat him, and he beat him clean. And he beat him, and it was a very good win for him, right? And then on Raw, what do? They have a match to verse Bobby Lashley to see who's going to go up against Brock Lesnar. And he beats Bobby Lashley. Why did we get a rematch this early? And the reason why is because they're trying to book him like a babyface, but not like a normal babyface. They want to book him like a super babyface. They want to show him climb the mountain. Why would this guy that looks like he could tear the arms off of, a decent-looking dude, why does he need to be pushed like a super baby? He doesn't need to be pushed like a super baby because he is tough, he is strong, he is powerful. So why are you trying to make him climb a hill that supposedly he's already on top of?
Well, what would you? I mean, one of the big things about Roman is that his merchandise sales are so high. He's constantly number 1 or number 2 in the company. And when you're a heel, you don't sell as much merchandise, and you don't even have as much merchandise. So what do you think is a good... I mean, do you think that's all that it's going to take is a heel turn? Because I agree, once someone's a heel, you can turn them babyface. And you can't turn a babyface if they're not already a babyface. So, and I mean, it's obvious the crowd just rejects him, but is it this small group? Are me and you considered a small group of the audience compared to the larger amount of kids and females and maybe older adults or whoever it is that's going out there and buying his merchandise and that's creating him creating money for the company? Is that all it's going to take is just a heel turn and then the crowd's going to get on his side? Or should they just keep doing what they're doing and keep making the money that they're making off of them?
I think it's tough because I agree with everything that you just said. I think if you turn him heel in a good way, so there's baby faces and there's heels, and then there's tweeners, right? And we don't have everybody technically right now. If you watch WWE, like literally everybody is a tween. Like every single one is right in between, and that's part of the issue too. But if you turn Roman Reigns heel in the same way that you book somebody like Stone Cold Steve Austin, where obviously he was a babyface, right? Like obviously he's a babyface for that majority of that run, but he's doing heel things, and you're able to kind of give him you're allowed to make him an asshole, and you're allowed to make him a jerk and all those kinds of things, and you're allowed to let him win in these ways that give him that let the heat stay on him. but because they always try to make him look like he's going up against a monster of some kind, like here's what's going to happen. Roman Reigns is probably going to beat Brock Lesnar on this SummerSlam pay-per-view because I think that they're done with the experiment of Brock Lesnar. This is purely speculation, but I think they're done with it, and I think Roman Reigns is finally going to quote-unquote conquer the mountain, and then immediately after, Braun Strowman is going to cash in his Money in the Bank contract.
Really?
Because what does that make happen? It allows Roman Reigns to conquer another monster, and that's
you think he'll beat Braun for the cash in?
I think that, well, Braun has the Money in the Bank right now.
Right.
I think that Roman beats Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, and I think that on the same night, we see Braun Strowman cash in the Money in the Bank and beat Roman Reigns, who's just had this, right, they're going to sell like, oh my gosh, how did Roman Reigns finally beat Brock Lesnar, the beast incarnate? I mean, his body must feel like it's broken in half. And then out of nowhere comes Braun Strowman, does that power slam move that he rips off of the British Bulldog and doesn't do it nearly as well, and then and wins. And then you have this series of matches that's going to go on from that, which will eventually see Roman Reigns recapture the belt from Braun because he's once again conquered a monster.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that happening. I definitely think that from everything I'm hearing, Braun is he is a made man right now. That he's over.
Oh yeah.
But I just don't know what they can do with him. I mean, I hear such bad reports on him from the internet wrestling community. But then when you look at reports and you see how popular his merchandise is, it's like, where's the disconnect there? And I mean, I've heard the TV crowds boo him and stuff like that. And honestly, I mean, I can't fathom sitting down in a room and pitching the idea of Brock versus Roman again. I can't. It doesn't. Even if he was over, even if he was a babyface, I mean, I can't understand how this is supposed to captivate anybody. Why would anyone care if he wins or loses this match? It's happened so many times and it's never meant anything every single time. So I really have no idea why they would book that. I mean, I think that Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar, the MMA ties, it all ties together. Lashley is credible, but just like Bobby Roode, at this point, I think Lashley made a mistake leaving Impact. He would have been a big fish, and right now he's just in the sea.
And I don't like Bobby Lashley. I really don't. I think that every time I watch him wrestle, he always looks green to me. He doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. He's not credible or believable in selling, in my opinion. And he does that thing where he's a really big guy, right?
Uh-huh.
But then he gets taken down by these moves where it's like, that like hurt you? Like, you're a really big dude, and that's causing you to like take eight seconds to get off of the mat. Like, there's a disconnect in the size of his body and the amount of selling that he does. Like, he's not believable to me. I don't like Bobby Lashley. I don't know if it's his look, I don't know if it's his style, but there's something about him that I've never been a fan of. Right. Yeah, I don't like big guys.
Right. Well, I think he works against Brock though. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So
I would rather watch that. I would much rather watch Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. I would even rather him drop the belt to Bobby Lashley over Roman Reigns. Right. I wanted to see Samoa Joe get that rub, right? Like, I know that we're in a world that's not about giving rubs like we used to, and I think that Brock Lesnar beating The Undertaker was fine. I thought it was honestly, it was a good idea, and it gave credibility to Brock Lesnar that I don't know if he needed, but it didn't hurt him to get it. And then to see Goldberg come in and demolish Brock Lesnar, which I loved, and right, like, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this too, because as a '90s fan of wrestling, I loved what they did with Goldberg. I loved that he came in, he took down him, and he won in 2 minutes. That was amazing. It was so good.
I never ever liked Bill Goldberg. Never. I was never a fan of his. I never found his deal to be intriguing.
But even with you not liking him, don't you like how they continued the booking of him when he made it back to WWE?
When he this last run, Okay, let me set this up in all of context. So when he first came back, and he was just gonna do one match and everything. When he beat, I was kind of upset because I figured that there's kind of no way that Goldberg is gonna sign and agree to do one match if he wasn't gonna go over, and it just didn't make sense to me. It wasn't his age. It wasn't the thing that I didn't like about it was the fact that, and it wasn't that it was Bill Goldberg, because he's a big enough star that I fully understand the point in paying him to come in and work a match. I get it. I get the idea behind popping the crowd. So I had no problem with that. Even though I don't like Bill Goldberg, I didn't have a problem with them using him. But I thought, how bad does it make you look if you're going to lose to a guy that's as poorly, talent-wise as Bill Goldberg, who is 50 years old and hasn't wrestled in X amount of years, and you're going to lose to him? Like, that just makes you look awful. And I thought it was such a bad idea. Wait, I'm not finished though.
Okay.
I just thought it was an awful idea. I thought it was stupid and horrible. When they did it the way they did it, I loved it.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's real. It's absolutely real. If I'm about to wrestle a 50-year-old who hasn't been in the ring in the last 12 years, and I thought, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. In logic, in reality, if this was all a real fight, it's it's easy to see a person would think this way and think, oh, this is no big deal, and then out of the gate, just all of a sudden, a spear and a jackhammer and a win. That makes sense. It came out of nowhere, and it's the only way you could book him to make it make sense. I loved his run. I thought, other than him wrestling Kevin Owens, I didn't think that was needed. Dumb. I didn't think they needed to go into that. I didn't think he needed the title. I didn't think he needed to lose the title to Lesnar, because I didn't think Lesnar needed the title. That's the thing, is I don't mind Lesnar with the belt, and I don't mind Lesnar not wrestling for, X amount of time. The problem is when Lesnar does wrestle, the matches aren't what they should be. And he's wrestling against he's coming out and wrestling against Reigns, and my biggest problem is what they're actually doing with him, not the fact that, because in my opinion, when you're the biggest, baddest motherfucker in the entire world, then you don't have to wrestle. You should be a special attraction. You should, every time that you come on TV, every time that you're on pay-per-view, every time that you walk into an arena, it should be extremely special. But I don't think Lesnar is special like that anymore. I think he's tainted. No,
and it's because it's okay that he's not on Raw. That's totally fine. I agree with you completely. But when they stopped putting him on pay-per-views, that's when it became a problem. He should have been on every single pay-per-view he should have been on.
Matthew, at one time, there was one pay-per-view for the year. There was 3 pay-per-views during the year. There was, at one time, there was 4 There's what, 16 pay-per-views every year? Hey, what's special about someone wrestling 16 on every single pay-per-view? There's nothing special about it. Everyone's on all the pay-per-views.
Because he's not on the weekly product, though. So it keeps those matches feeling special when he is on just the pay-per-views.
You go 3 weeks in between pay-per-views.
Yeah, I mean,
so who cares if he's on every pay-per-view? You're talking about he'd still be on TV every 3 weeks.
Sort of, but those matches would always be title matches, and they would always be,
But again, it's the same cookie cutter thing, getting from match A to match B. There's no real build up for it. There's no real reason for people to be wrestling him. If every 3 weeks he's just wrestling a different person in a title match, what's even the point of the title match?
But then it feels like UFC style, right? Like, it feels like we only do the matches every month, and we only do the title matches.
But
like,
how many times does one person fight in the UFC?
Yeah,
per year. How many times?
Yeah. They're obviously way different schedule. It is professional wrestling, so there is like the suspension of disbelief to a point. But I don't like. I like that Lesnar hasn't lost the title in the most purest sense of, like, he's the best person in the company and the strongest and the baddest motherfucker, like you said. But it hurts it when he stops defending it, because then he doesn't look like tough. He doesn't look tough. He looks like he just is holding this belt and he doesn't want to let go of it.
Well, and I think that's. I mean, I agree with you. I just don't think that every month or every pay-per-view, if you have the pay-per-view schedule that they have, I don't think it's special if you're on every single pay-per-view. That I don't think. I mean, I could see once every 3 months he's out there to defend, because then you have 12, 13, 14 weeks to build up this incredible main event with the champion of the world, the universe, the universal champion. Now all of a sudden you have 13 weeks of build-up. So you get to that match, and holy shit, that match is really, really meaningful. If every 3 weeks he's just defending his title and winning, or winning by cheating, winning by count-out, I mean, how many stipulation matches is he going to go through in a year? What difference does it make? Now the title is as meaningless as it was whether he had it and was not defending it, or defending it every 3 weeks. Now it still doesn't mean anything. And I think that's the problem, is we have this mentality where it's like we expect everything needs to happen every 3 weeks. There's a pay-per-view every 3 weeks. So you have pay-per-view A, and then directly after that you have 3 weeks to build up to pay-per-view B. So everything is just this, it's all so predictable. Because all you're doing is doing the exact same thing over and over and over and over and over. There's no time to actually build anything, and for anything to resonate in anyone's head, or have real substance behind it. You know, the stories are meaningless because they're all jokes. They're going to start and end in 3 weeks. Start and end in 3 weeks. And if they do have more than one match, then people are like, oh my God, this is... Because then they have 9 stipulation matches in a row. And so now none of the stipulations mean anything, because every couple of months you have one set of people that are going to have back-to-back stipulation matches. And they're going to trade wins, and it's a big joke. You know, just like these branded pay-per-views, like Tables, Ladders, Chairs, or Hell in a Cell. When the pay-per-view is every year, you know you're going to have the match every year. What difference does... We know that whatever's going to happen in the main event, these people are going to build themselves into this Hell in a Cell. There's no real reason for it. It's silly that they just happen to be hating each other as much as they do right around the time of Hell in a Cell, and so it just, now it doesn't mean anything. It's a joke. It's a toy. It's a Mattel toy that they throw out there. You know, and that's all it is. You can. I'm passionate about. I'm real careful about. I don't go online and I don't bash WWE. I simply just don't watch it. I don't find it to be enjoyable, and so dude, it's like I would never say I want a wrestling company to go out of business, or I don't want them to succeed. When I don't like something, I just don't view it. I just don't watch it, and because they're lucky they're getting paid. I wish I was getting paid. I wish I was in an Impact contract, and I was and I didn't have a real job. You know, and everything that I made my money from wrestling. So I would never want that to be taken away from everyone, but I can't stand the WWE. I just find it to be so... There's nothing intriguing about it. It's the exact same thing over and over, and it sucks because they have the best talent in the world, you know? Or some of the best talent. Because there's a local wrestling federation in every town, in every state, that also has some kick-ass talent that some people just may not have the opportunity to see. You know, the future. The future is all over. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I jest when I say that I want Impact to go out of business more than anything. Obviously, I don't watch it either. No, I realize you don't. I realize you don't lay awake at night thinking, man, I really wish Impact would go out of business. I realize that. The other frustration about the Brock Lesnar situation, and we can end it here obviously, is just the fact that I think we both believe that Brock Lesnar can put on a great match. Yeah. We've seen amazing matches, and it wasn't until his match against Dean Ambrose where I said, like, he just doesn't care anymore. Right. I loved his match against John Cena at Extreme Rules in 2014 or 13 or whatever it was, and stuff like that. With it was a great grueling matchup. Yeah. I didn't hate his match against Randy Orton. I thought it was a little poorly booked, but it was okay. But it just became more and more like, oh man, this guy where is the good Brock Lesnar? Where did he go? I mean, right. I get that it's the paycheck. I get that, but like if every match he did was a great match, I think it felt way different than what it feels like in this regard. Like, my frustration with him is I think a little bit of what you're saying. I'm disappointed that he's not producing better than what he produces. Because I will still, and I'll be pretty adamant about my holding my ground on this, but I like the idea of having a champion defend once every 3-4 months, and that's it. And I like the idea of the main event with this champion, having a build of 13, 14 weeks straight of this challenger getting the opportunity to face the world champion. To me, that's the biggest, most important thing you can possibly do. So I like that. I like that idea. But my biggest frustration with Brock Lesnar is there's no need for Brock Lesnar. And that's my biggest thing is he's never been all in when it came to wrestling. When he really cares and he's working hard and he wants to do well, he does well. But even when he's at his very best, in 2018, there is not a need to pay any pro wrestler what the WWE pays him. That money can be divided and shared upon all of its developmental talent. It can be divided and shared amongst all of its other roster. There's just not a need for Brock. When he first came back, I do think that it was an important time. He popped the crowd. He popped the ratings. I do think it was a little bit needed because WWE had been going on this roller coaster where they've just been going straight down for so long. And as unfortunate as it is, and as great for the WWE, they are now a $2 billion company. And because they make so much money, they have absolutely no need to spend it on a guy like Brock Lesnar who is not going to give 100% to pro wrestling. They just don't need that. The fans don't deserve that. And as everyone has been seeing, there's nothing they really can do with it. Because first and foremost, who's at the same level as Brock Lesnar? Who's thought of that has the same credibility? The WWE is a brand specific company now. And that's why everyone gets, trades to 50-50 wins-loss. That's why nobody is bigger than anyone else. That's why there's no Hulk Hogan. That's why there's no Macho Man Randy Savage anymore. Because everyone is the draw is not the wrestlers. The draw is the brand WWE. When WWE comes to town, that's what people are buying tickets for. And they're doing that on purpose. They don't want, as much as they love The Rock coming back and being on their TV show, they hate the fact that The Rock leaves and has this giant career outside of the WWE. So they're not looking for that. They're not looking for Hogans anymore. They're looking for people that can be WWE superstars, and that's it. And so there's no need for a guy like Brock Lesnar anymore because they don't need a giant star, sucking up the money. They just don't. And I think within the next 5 years, every single wrestler in the world, including me, will have a contract with the WWE because they're just buying up everyone. They're just taking every single bit of talent that they possibly can whenever they can, because they can. It doesn't even affect them. It doesn't. Their deals in Australia, in Saudi Arabia, in London, in all these international deals that they're doing, the deal with Fox, the deal with USA, it's insane. I never thought in a million years, I never thought WCW would go out of business. I never thought ECW would go out of business. But I certainly never thought that WWE would be the global entity that it currently is.
And it's definitely hurt. As for wrestling, for actual wrestling fans, and I don't want to make a remark towards the people that love WWE, because right. I know that those people they love the product and they love the wrestlers and they like what they do, and that's great. But I think when it comes to the ICW, the Internet Community Wrestling, the IWC, I think that for us, because it's funny because I refer to that meme so often of the dude with the AWA shirt that's standing up in the auditorium and he says, "It's still real to me, damn it." I don't know if it's just,
I've met him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he actually came to the show I promoted in Murfreesboro. My
that's
show
awesome.
That I did. Yeah, he came and I've met him a couple times. His name is Dave.
That's awesome. But I think back to him all the time, honestly, because when I watch wrestling and I enjoy myself, it is still real to me. I still love what wrestling used to feel like in so many ways to me. And when you watch WWE, it takes just a tiny bit of that away sometimes, and that's where the issues arise so very often. And seeing them as big as they are, as much fun as it is to watch the Greatest Royal Rumble, because I thought that was a pretty fun event for the most part, it is just like, what is going on? Like, what is this? This is larger than even the WWE can contain anymore at this point.
It was a government mandated event. You know, I mean,
the entire city has to come here and watch this thing.
100,000 people filled that arena, and 12 of them knew what wrestling was. You know, I mean, but I mean, they're making $20 million off that deal. $20 million off of that deal. They're the same thing is about to happen on Australia. Another $20 million deal in Australia. You know, and it's insane to think that, you know, that at this time, and like I was telling you, when in 1997, I couldn't imagine a WWE network. You know, but it's insane to think just how big this company is, how enormous of a company it is. When, you know, you've heard stories from Mick Foley and stuff about how, you know, when WCW was kicking their ass, they were coming close to bankruptcy. I heard stories as early as 1984 about the loans that Vince McMahon had to take to run WrestleMania in hopes that he could make it. You know, otherwise he was flat broke. I mean, they were literally flat broke. He wasn't a millionaire at that time, and he wasn't living, you know, cushiony at that time. He spent all of his money to create this company, this you know, television company through syndication, and it worked. And it's insane. It's crazy to think that you can do that. You know.
It's an odd blueprint that he created all himself and somehow successfully did it. I got a question for you about this whole thing, though. Do you think that anything changes when Vince McMahon finally steps down and, you know, supposedly the thing is that people say is that Triple H will then take over, and everybody gives Triple H a ton of credit for NXT and stuff like that. So do you think any of this changes when Vince McMahon finally retires and moves the reins over?
That is such a difficult question, because I think that they will sell the company.
Wow,
I think
that'd be interesting.
I think that a company like Fox, you know, a large multi-channel conglomerate will buy it so that they have the programming, and I think that it'll fizzle away, kind of like WCW did. I think all of the developmental program will completely go away immediately after the sale. But I think that before Vince, I see it as being one of these ideas where Vince sells the company and Triple H is supposed to take over. I do see something like that happening, but I do think that he will sell the company before he actually retires, and I don't see it surviving after it's sold.
That'd be interesting if that does happen, just because, you know, going back to like Vince McMahon Sr. and him telling his son, like, hey, I don't want you to go get these other promotions. I don't want you to go into these other markets and all this other stuff. And then to see the reign end with him just like handing it away from the family, that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, it will be. And I see it playing out that way. You know, I've heard numerous stories over the last 5 years about how Vince is openly, you know, talking about how he's open to a sale of the entire company, and that if, you know, the right, and right now his company is valued at, you know, he can sell the company for $3 billion right now. If like a Disney wanted to swoop in and buy it, I mean, he could sell it for that much. You know, and so.
I hope Disney buys it. Then we'll see the Avengers versus like the WWE Avengers. Oh my god!
Again, just like the WWE is going to buy everyone out within the next 5 years, Disney will also own all of us as well. We'll all have a contract with Disney at some point in time. It will happen in the future.
It's a good thing they're turning into more of a liberal brand. Otherwise, we'd be really screwed.
But it's crazy. I mean, it's just crazy. And when I look at the state, you know, I'm an old school tape trader, and that's how I fell in love with wrestling, and that's what got me into wrestling. And I vividly remember, you know, in 1995 when YouTube first came about, and it's like, oh shit, you could just type in anything, and, you know, up pops a video. And now, you know, I have my own streaming service. You know, I'm one, and I'm just one of 5,000 independent wrestling companies that have a streaming service. There's Fight TV, which has both paid services and free services of wrestling from all over the country, all over the planet. They've got stuff from the UK, from Ireland, from there's Hong Kong wrestling, there's wrestling in Thai. It's just amazing this world that we're in right now. Because I don't know how you can ever create even Impact and ROH. ROH is about to run the Madison Square Garden for WrestleMania weekend. But that's not a place that they could run if it wasn't WrestleMania weekend. If they weren't piggybacking, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking advantage of what WWE has created this entire weekend, where hundreds of thousands of fans ascend onto a city. I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking advantage of that opportunity. But if it wasn't WrestleMania weekend, there's no way they could sell out. They just came here to Nashville and ran the Municipal Auditorium, an auditorium that WWE hasn't ran in 30 years, and they were a third of a way full. So as hot as that product is on the smaller scale, they're still very small compared to the WWE.
Yeah, I mean, is there the ability for something to even come close to what WWE? I mean, would you say Impact is anything like what WWE was in any part of like the late '90s, early 2000s? I mean, I would say the closest TNA ever got was in 2010 to 2014, when they had to lean on a lot of those kind of WWE guys at the time, obviously. But I don't. Why is WWE? Is it just because when something becomes the generic, you just call it whatever that generic is, and WWE is the generic for wrestling. So if you think wrestling, you think WWE.
The thing is the 1996 through 2000, and it really ended in 2001, and it's not really because of the death of WCW or the death of ECW. It just really did. I mean, 2001 was really the last year of this, where pro wrestling was ingrained in pop culture, and that's the biggest change. Is that pro wrestling is no longer part of the pop culture like it was, and a lot of that has to do with society. We're a much more liberal country, and I don't mean that like liberal conservatism. I don't mean it in that way. I mean that there was a time period where what was hot in pop culture, from cartoons to television shows to music to movies, was the underground. That was what pop culture was. Everything was independent. Everything, the movies were independent. The music was independent. The dress, the look, the style, the everything, and wrestling played into that. Wrestling right now is very corporate, and corporate is not what is pop culture America. It's not what is ingrained into our pop culture, and I think there's a giant disconnect with pro wrestling right now, and that's why it's not as popular, as hot as it once was. That's why there's not 7 million U.S. viewers watching every week, because it's much more of a niche brand. I mean, don't get me wrong, 3 million people is still a lot of people, but it's very niche. It's not what it once was, because you could never watch wrestling. You cannot care anything about it, but you're going to watch it with your friends. Because it was cool. It was fun to watch on Monday nights. If you were a college student or a high school student, it was fun to watch. They were doing crazy shit. They were doing, everything was risque. Well, our world isn't like that anymore, and so you can't do those kinds of things. And right now, it's just very homogenized, and it's very bland, and it just, everything is cookie cutter, and it goes, everything is extremely scripted, and everything looks the same. The guys look the same. They dress the same. Everyone wrestles the same. Every venue looks exactly like it did before, and nothing is out of place. Nothing is different. And so I don't know what it'll take for there to be another boom. I think there's a nice little sizable boom on the independents. But even that, I think a lot of people online kind of overblow it. And they act as if, because a handful of people, those Cody Rhodes, those Young Bucks, Austin Aries, charges a good couple of bucks. Because there's those handful of people that are literally making a living off the independents. And the independents are strong right now. There's a lot of great stuff out there. But there's only a handful of people that are making it. every one of us is working a regular job. Every one of us is trying to think of different ways we can monetize this or monetize that, or what kind of gimmicks can we sell, or what can we do to make more money in the business so that we don't have to work a regular job. Every one of us is doing that. It's a 90% struggling and a 10% making it. And so, even the independents, where it's really probably the hottest it's been in the last 10, 15 years, I still don't know what it's going to take for someone to come out there and really grab a hold of an audience to create a boom in the business. I don't know. Do you think it can be done? Do you see anything changing in the future that would really grab a hold of people that aren't currently watching wrestling? Does it need to be more adult? Does it need to be less adult?
It does need to be more adult, not in the sense of like we need to see Sable come back and flash her tits or anything, but we do need to see them not treat we need to see them treat the casual fan like they would treat a legitimate fan. And I think that's what happens today is that we see legitimate fans treated like casual fans. Such as like what I just said about Daniel Bryan, he should be pushed to the moon just like he was being pushed, because that's where his stature on the card should be. But
right.
Instead, they put him back to the mid card. That's treating me, the actual enthusiast, the legitimate wrestling fan, as a casual fan. And then the casual fan who watches it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly who Daniel Bryan is. It's like, that's not who Daniel Bryan is. What are you talking about?
Right.
So I think it's less about needing to be quote unquote adult, but it does need to be it needs to be treated with a certain amount of respect towards the people that care about the product. And obviously, me and you, we literally have no idea what we're talking about, because Roman Reigns, like you said, sells some of the most merchandise in the entire company.
Yeah.
So none of what we say even matters to the slightest bit.
Right. I mean, that's true. And they've got a good point there. I mean, we keep telling them, no, this is bullshit, this sucks, and they keep saying, well, it makes us a whole lot of money. So,
exactly.
I guess I would do the same thing, right? I'm a glutton for I love money, I love cash. Give me cash and I'm happy. So I would do the same thing, I guess.
The $1 million Justin.
Well, Matt. Tell me, what do you got? What do you got planned on your upcoming schedule of Hookah podcasts?
Okay, so for the Ringside Hookah podcast, the next thing that we have going on, obviously, will be a preview show of SummerSlam in a couple of weeks, the Sunday before. And then for myself personally, for the Superstar Spotlight, the next person that I'm going to be tackling is Scott Hall. I cannot wait to get into his super early career with the NWA when he was rocking the mullet and using the bulldog as his finisher. I love that stuff. And then moving into the Diamond Stud, Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. I can't wait to talk about his stuff for the Juggalo professional wrestling stuff that he did, and also ECW for the brief little while. The fact that he had a big influence on Justin Incredible for a brief little while and stuff like that. Like, I'm excited to do a real big deep dive inside of Scott Hall's career. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And then for Moise, my partner in crime, he's going to be doing another fantasy booking, though I'm not 100% sure what his next one is going to be. But I think that whoever he picks is going to be a fun guy. He did Mike Kanellis recently. Before that, he did Shinsuke and all the Japanese wrestlers on the WWE roster and stuff. So when he does a dive into the fantasy talent booking, he really draws a really long even a year of programming that he would like to see them do with these superstars.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So how can they find this? How can people listening find you?
Best way to do it is just go to YouTube and search for the Ringside Hookah. That is Ringside, just regular spelled, and then Hookah is spelled Hookah. And that's all you got to do is just look up Ringside Hookah, and you'll find us right there on YouTube.
And how can people connect with you if they want to follow you? I would think Twitter would probably be the best.
Yeah, so Twitter is my most used form of social media. I absolutely love Twitter, and I think that when it's used right, it is the absolute most fantastic way to communicate and talk with people with similar hobbies or interests. But you can find me on Twitter at only Matt Desin, Desind, because I know nobody can know how to spell that. And then you can find me on Facebook as well. I actually admin a group page called Ringside Hookah. So if you want to connect with us in the Facebook world as well, we do a lot of fun stuff in there. We post the memes are heavy and strong inside of that group, let's put it that way, and we have a good time talking about our favorite wrestlers, gimmicks, and all sorts of fun stuff in there. So go and check out on Facebook Ringside Hookah, because that is a fun place to be.
Well, sweet, Brother Matt, good brother. So let's do this again. And
I want to, yes.
you know, maybe let's do this in a month after SummerSlam has taken place, and we can see how angry we are at the end of the pay-per-view. And I will even do my best. I will promise to watch at least the main event. I can't
Okay,
promise
good.
that I'm going to watch the rest of the show, but I will watch at least the main event just so I can get myself riled up and either be angry at Brock or angry at Roman. I mean, does it really matter which one I'm angry at?
No, and you have to watch the main event so you can see me book it correctly with Braun Strowman coming out at the end of it.
That's
that will
right.
be the best part of it.
well, thank you so much, brother, and I guess we'll have you on it again, man.
Hell yeah, this was a great time.
All right, that was the good brother Hookah Matt. Make sure you check out his Facebook, his Twitter, and his YouTube account. Hopefully, we'll have him back on real soon. Remember, one last time, don't forget, go to Pivot Share WrestleTopia TV. If you're in the Rome, Georgia area, September 22nd, I'll be there with WCW wrestler Daphne. If you are in North Carolina and come into WrestleCade, I'll be there with both Kira Hogan and Daphne. And then if you're in the Kentucky, Tennessee area, I am all over the place all the time. This Friday I'll be in Franklin, Kentucky at New South. I've got so many. August will be New South for the Rock and Roll Express, New South for Road Warrior Animal, Bowling Green for Back to School Bash, Rockwood, Tennessee for Ox Harley. So check out WrestleTopia. You know, just go to WrestleTopia on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, WrestleTopia TV on YouTube. Wherever you may type anything, type WrestleTopia. I'm going to leave you with the official trailer of the Journeyman documentary, which we will be debuting for the first time. World premiere red carpet. Stars like Jerry Lynn, James Carver, the Naturals, Chase Steven, Andy Douglas, a whole host of Josephus from the NWA will all be walking the red carpet. Tickets only $8. Check out WrestleTopia on Facebook for more information on that. August 30th in Hermitage, Tennessee at the Full Moon Cineplex. It's going to be freaking awesome. And just so everyone remembers, tape trading in the 90s was fucking awesome.
I didn't work this hard in this business to come up here to fail. And that's what I did. And I'm sitting here with a table full of bills, an empty bank account, and maxed out credit cards.
You have to move on. We have to move on. It's you and me, kid.
Frankie still does the grind. He goes out and he drives the towns and he works night after night. We couldn't do the grind like Frank does.
What happened to the granny that sat on the front row that used to go, "Come on, I want to see you get your ass kicked"? They just disappeared because what happened was me take my wrist all the way up to my elbows and let me put my kick pads on. The people here in the southeastern United States like to see people get punched in the face.
This business takes passion. It takes from you way more than it gives you. A lot of us don't have that love for it so down deep that we'll stay the long haul. I think that's the most admirable thing of what he's doing.
You know, we're not making $1 million a year. You know, I didn't get into this business to make millions. You know, I got into this business because I love it.